acknowledge the presence of the PS youth. You know, as bankers, we scan the room and we make sure that protocols are observed. And big sis Maureen Lilanda over there, and anyone else who I may not have acknowledged. And Bene from Zanako, who's here with me. Lombe, my son, is somewhere in the room, and my brother-in-law, my right. It's because of Lombe that I'm here. So we must acknowledge him. So thank you for having me, and thank you for your question. I was asked to give a bit of context as to who I am and my journey. And so I'll just go back a little bit to the beginning of my career as a banker. I started out as a farm girl, growing up on this farm far away and never even imagining where I am today. Fast forward, joined the banking industry, and to be honest, I wasn't intentional, I wasn't deliberate, I was just working like a horse, every day trudging along. And then I was given an opportunity to go into a bigger role. I think having joined Zanako just over 3 years ago, I learned the power of one. A lot of the time, we try to sell to groups, to millions, to billions, but we just need to sell to the one. And we need to understand you, and not for you to understand us. So when I joined Zanako, I realized that half the time we're not even monitoring what was happening on social media, what was happening to our brand, what people were saying about us. We're not quite there yet, so if you have a complaint, Lulu, please don't talk about Zanako again.
No. We're good now, since she came.
Since I came. But, you know, at the end of the day, with any brand, as you keep going, you keep improving, you keep getting better, and you identify what is it that we're missing. And by the way, it's okay to say no sometimes, because you can't say yes to everyone. But it's how you say it, such you're not creating that hurt, because we have the power to hurt as human beings. Even on social media now, anonymously, we have the power to hurt without even being seen. I've had people set up Facebook pages with my picture, with my name. At one point, there were 20 fake Facebook pages of me out there, and we didn't know how to bring them down. We engaged Facebook, they said, no, we don't do that, we have to do this. We engaged Zita, they said, oh no, this is the process, we have to do this. Nothing was happening, and for a whole year, people were being scammed. People were going to other people, unsuspecting public members, and saying, I'm Mopandi Chibisakunda. If you send me 5,000 kwacha, I can set up a cryptocurrency profile for you. And people would pay that money, and then come to the bank and say, I sent Mopandi Chibisakunda 5,000 kwacha. So we realized that we couldn't ignore this. We had to be in this space. We had to play in this space. We had to listen to you. We had to understand what's going on. With that power of one, because each person can make a difference. And that's how we shifted that. We started by responding. If previously people would post comments, Zanako wouldn't respond, now you will see a response from us. We'll engage you. We'll understand where is your source of pain. What is it that we can do about it? We're now coming to you as creators. We don't believe we have all the solutions. As Zanako, what product would you want to see? If we came to you as Zanako, as creators, what would you like to be selling on our behalf? And how do we work together to make that happen? That is the shift. We then went to Zikta. I personally went to Zikta, and the DG said to me, okay, Mpandi, let's sit down and fix this. And they took down those pages. We decided we're no longer victims, and we're not going to wait. We need to make sure that we own this space, because the digital space is the space of the future. Just looking around the room, I'm just trying to figure out how many of you bank with us as Zanako.
Guys.
There you go. Why?
Yeah, good question.
Why isn't it half the room? Why isn't it the entire room? I can see you speaking to each other and saying, I had this experience, I have that experience. That is what we want to change. And the only way to change that is by engaging, by coming to you and saying, what would it take for you to come to us? What would it take for you to bank with us? What would it take for you to transact with us so that we can then take advantage of every opportunity and run with it? That is what we're changing. And that is how we're dealing with some of these issues where it comes to the persona of the bank and my persona as well. The two are separate, but what we do with each of them makes a difference in our communities. And what I'll do, considering that we've sponsored this event, I'm going to get the whole list of you creators.
Yes.
Good.
And I'm going to come to you. And I'm going to ask you, why wouldn't you bank with us? And in the next 3 to 6 months, if we haven't onboarded you as Zanako, then it's a failure on our part. So I'm looking forward to you banking with us. And when you're banking with us, wait and see what happens. I don't want to go down the path of discussing economic issues. I'd rather look at opportunities. So for example, currently there is a drought. And following this outcome, there has been an initiative underway to plant winter maize, winter crop, so that we begin to address some of the issues where it comes to food security. So for example, as Zanako, we sat around the table and we said, how can we make a difference in this space? For you to plant a winter crop, you need irrigation, you need machinery, you need to be able to keep the water, dam it, storage, and you also need electricity. Now, because of the issue with the drought, we also recognize that electricity may not necessarily be readily available, so we need to provide for solar. And we've packaged a product and we've rolled it out. And the way that we've rolled it out is we also recognize that it can't be the people who've always been in this space. We need to take a bit of a view on the youth. So actually at a recent event, we announced that we're going to identify some youth who have access to some land, who will then be part of a process which is partially guaranteed by the African Development Bank so that we can begin to address the agriculture. I don't know for how many years we've been saying that Zambia has potential for agriculture, we should de-risk the economy, but we actually haven't done much about it. So we have decided that we're going to make a difference. So in order for us to do that, we need the people on the ground to be part of this. So I'm now giving you a second challenge. If you do have an interest in farming, and that is your side opportunity, in addition to being a creator, come and talk to us about it. Try this. Can you imagine if 1 million people tried this on 1 acre each? That would be 1 million acres of farming. We have 1 million hectares down as Zambia. So this is an immediate thing that we can all do something about. In addition to some of these challenges on the ground, in terms of running a corporate, obviously it's about the people, right? Because you can't do anything on your own. So what we have done in Zanako is to put together a very clear view on what constitutes good performance. So whatever businesses you're running, you need to also have a look at what constitutes good performance, whether it's for you or for your team, or whoever it is that is part of what you're dealing with. Because that is the first piece in driving success. Your vision, how you're going to implement it, your strategy, and then who's going to do what, and just following through with people actually knowing when they're doing well, when they're doing badly. You know, we're such poor communicators as Zambians. We never want to give people bad news. We never want to actually tell people, actually this didn't work, and to give them the opportunity to do it right next time. I'm a great believer in learning from experiences, because it may be that in the past I did something wrong. I'd like to learn from it and improve for the future. We owe it to each other to give each other that feedback so that people can get better. We want to tell people you're doing well, but they're actually not doing well. in the business, and then at the end of the day, it doesn't work out. So let's have those right conversations in our institutions, whatever it is that we're doing, and if we're the creator of whatever platforms or whatever solutions, whatever communication, let's ask for that feedback so I can know for sure that we're on the right track and we're then able to keep delivering and get towards that goal. So those are two pieces that I thought I'd share, the challenge from an economic perspective and the challenges from a people perspective, which usually happens in organizations and is not dealt with oftentimes.
Thank you.
I think in the beginning, when you're a startup stage, it's very hard to separate the two. You know, you are the brand, you are the salesperson, you are the cleaner, because it's just the nature of a small business, right? And even as you put, I actually remember a lot of the times being in the marketing teams, I would have been selling, I would have been talking to a customer, so you were part of the brand and growing the brand. But as the brand grew, as we began to understand the strengths of the brand, as we began to understand who we were selling to much clearer, because in the beginning we were also kind of feeling our way in the dark. You were selling to everybody, but as the years went by, we realized, one, who we were selling to, but where the growth was coming from. And then we realized actually that sometimes, not all the time, am I a useful salesperson. You know, sometimes I'm not. You know, to the bottom of the pyramid, we sell a lot of packs. I'll say millions of packs in compounds, by the way. I don't know if you realize that, because of the convenience factor, right? And Lulu would remember this, because we've worked with Lulu before, and Lulu is not cheap. She's a big influencer, you know, those millions of people she speaks to. And she came and said to us, you know, Monica, we want to do something with you. And I said, I love you, Lulu, but you won't get past my marketing team because, Lulu, you don't speak to Vanamayo in Chivolia.
For real.
Yeah, okay? We understood that because we are selling millions of packets now, because we all got you, we got you guys already. You guys know how to eat it, you actually kind of know the brand. Still at the bottom of the pyramid, people didn't know what it was. And I needed to speak to those guys better. And Lusaka actually has 4 million people. Don't mind that census. There are a lot of people in this Lusaka who still don't know how to eat easy noodles. So I needed a different type of influence. So that's why we said no to Lulu. We love her, right? But we were like, yeah, but you know, you're kind of upper middle class, people who have smartphones and things like that. I want the lady who actually is on Facebook, because that's another thing we're talking about, the growth of social media and the impact. There isn't probably anybody who's not on social media platform, right? I have factory workers, and I see them outside the factory taking pictures and posting on Facebook, right? You know, so everybody, so we needed to speak differently, you know, and that meant I also couldn't speak. You know, my English was not quite getting across. We needed to be smarter about the influencers we use, because now it is influencers, it's not just the brand. We needed to also speak in languages that they understood and communicate. And it's not just local language, you guys have a way to speak. I'll tell you something. I had a meeting 2 weeks ago about something we're doing at the University of Zambia, or at universities. And we had like a focus group, and I was floored about some of the trends happening at university campuses. You know, and you think you know what's going on, except they're like, no, please don't give us those as prizes. Why would we take those things? This is what we want. This is why we'd be interested. This is why we won't wake up for that, you know. And I was completely floored by it. And that meant really that things are changing so quickly that we really need to understand what's happening. And what's also great is data. So now we're able to see, so now Lulu can actually tell me she has 1 million followers, and she can actually show me, right? And that's what we're looking for as corporates, to say, are we speaking the same language that our customer wants? In the language, are we capturing their attention? Are we using the right medium at the right time? Because maybe no one wants to be spoken to at 14 hours, but they want to be spoken to as they're walking to work. Now we know that, because we can see on social media platforms when you have the highest views. Before, 5 years ago, we had no idea. We were paying for ads all times of the day. But meanwhile, we know that the greatest time for students is this time, or this time. And that's when we need to be speaking to you. So it's been a lot of learning, a lot for us, a real strength of the brand, because we understand it much more. We're smarter, we are asking questions, and we are proudly Zambian, guys. A lot of brands keep it, you know, much higher. We're saying, you, Zambians, tell us. How do you want us to speak to you? What are your biggest points? Where do you buy? How much do you buy? When do you buy? What do you eat it with? You know, where would you like to see it? What else do you want? What flavor do you want? You're telling us that through branding, the feedback we're getting out of the branding. So it's been really, really great. And as I say, I'm not useful all the time. Maybe for these sorts of things I'm useful, for other things we're not. In fact, today we're in Mukuba Mall, the Copper Belt, and we have this great new, they're a young group of dancers dancing for us who are completely Kopala, but amazing, amazing. So different things for different people, I guess, yeah. Coming to branding and actually separating the two is something I didn't learn much about in the beginning until one big thing happened. And the big thing was my TEDx Houston talk. And I had it in London and it went viral. And then everyone was looking for me on social media platforms and saying, but who is this girl and what does she do? Oh, and that's her brand? Does it belong to her? Then I realized I had a light bulb moment, or a come to Jesus moment. And I thought, actually, this can help sell the product I'm struggling to sell. And that's when everything evolved for us, for me as a person, and as well as for our brand. We realized who we were speaking to. We realized we needed to speak differently, use our social media platforms for different people, for different things. We are on LinkedIn, we say something different. When we're on Facebook, when we're on TikTok, we say different things. We're much jazzier, younger. We're listening much more now because we realize the power of branding and how it realizes in dollars and cents. The difficulty has been, of course, now separating the two, because the brand has grown quite significantly. We have actually had brand ambassadors. I'm very privileged to say that one of my first brand ambassadors is here. I wonder if he wants me to say. I don't know if everyone knows. Yeah, Pilato, as he then was, currently PS, was my first brand ambassador. And perhaps because we were learning, we didn't actually utilize the power of who he was then. But we've realized very, very importantly now that branding, even in corporate, there's actually a business for you teaching us how to be smarter about our branding, to speak to you, who are the majority of people in this country. So we're now learning to separate the brand, because now I stand for something a little bit more different. I speak much more, if people follow me, on leadership. I speak more about women empowerment, how you as women can get your seat at the table. And the brand still speaks about convenience, affordability, eating on the go, having it anytime, anywhere. So you can see why we need to separate them, right? Yeah. But in the beginning stages, when it was all a bit of a mess, it was all together. But the power of creatives, what you are making us think of, even being here, it's great.
So glad to find a banker in the room. Actually, it's really true that particularly in financial services, there's a lot of rules and guidelines that you don't want to break because you don't want to take a risk on your existing career. So as you embark on this journey, and until such a time as it peaks, you have to be careful to maneuver both sides. Part of that process is understanding what does it take to actually balance it. So take the time and write it down. What I've found is that writing down helps me to think through things. In addition to that, what I've also found is that a lot of the time we underestimate the impact of conversations. I alluded to this earlier on, but speak to your compliance people, speak to your boss, your line manager, because what tends to happen is that if you haven't had that conversation, the Nigerians say, the child who cried first is the one who was wronged. So if you go first, right, and you actually raise that issue, by the time someone else is going to say, actually she's been doing this on the side and this is what's going on, your line manager will already know, and they will already have guided you as to how best to deal with it. So have those conversations. The third thing is sometimes you have to take that step back. So sometimes you'll have to give up your personal brand for the corporate brand. You have to make that choice and be clear about when you have to make it, but sometimes it will be the corporate brand, as in where you work. Sometimes it will be about you, and you have to just navigate it along the way, because sometimes the two just won't align. And if there is no alignment, you have to make a choice. Thank you.
Greetings everyone, my name is Cedric Chuma from Financial Insight Zambia here at Creators Connect, which is being hosted by Time Media at the Urban Hotel in Lusaka. Joining me right now is Jay Harris, who is the CEO and founder of Disruptive Media. Jay, how are you doing?
I'm blessed. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Glad to have you. So are you able to tell us what exactly does Disruptive Media do?
Yeah. So we're a multifaceted business looking at 360-degree content creators. So we do everything from production. So we produce shows for likes of BBC and other commercial and private entities. Creative strategy as well, where we work individually or in groups with content creators to come up with brand identity, creative strategy, social media plans, whether we're facilitating those ideas and then producing them or creating decks for them to go and pitch. And then we also work in educational institutions. We've got a media syllabus that is based around creative enterprise, which is nationwide as well. So a fair few things.
That's very interesting. Are you able to tell us about why you are at this event?
Yeah.
What you have seen and why this event is important?
I came to Z firstly 2002, like my wife is a proud member. I love it here. And actually what's really exciting is seeing how in the UK it's quite a saturated market, whereas here it feels we're at the beginning of a wave. So like events like this that Time Media have put on, creating a community and environment for young creators to come down and learn and absorb information from industry experts, hear from brands, for me that's super important. And so the reason I'm here is to hopefully add value based on 20 years experience in the West, but also because I'm excited by what's coming with that next wave. And whereas I think Zambians are quite cynical, we're behind, actually I look at it as a real opportunity to say, yeah, but the wave's coming and we can learn all these lessons over here so that we can maximize the opportunities as and when they come.
And also, what are some of the things that you have identified in this market that particularly make you proud? And where do you see the trend going?
I've not got a crystal ball, and so for me to predict where the market in Z's going at this point, I think that would be misplaced for me to say. What I would say is my first observation is there's a real willing from brands to embrace new media, which is super exciting, like seeing some of the brands here today saying, look, this is how you reach out, this is what we're looking for. That kind of receptive kind of inclusivity is really, really nice. And in terms of where it's going, I think that will be dependent on where the brands want to take it, in terms of how much they want to integrate content into their marketing strategies, and then how many content creators there are who are creating their own content, creating their own communities, and then selling that community and that audience into brands as well. So yeah, I think the headline is it's just really exciting to see what's on the horizon. I wouldn't necessarily predict exactly, but having seen what can happen in the UK and seeing people creating really successful businesses around their own personal brand, I mean, that's really exciting for Zambia.
Also, you mentioned earlier about how you're coming from a different market that's more saturated to here. My question is on the expertise gap from that saturated market and here. Have you identified any gap at all, if there is, between this budding market and the one that you're coming from? As well as you mentioned the syllabus that you actually provide. Is this a way of addressing that gap?
There might not be the depth of experience here, but there's certainly experts who can add value. So, again, seeing Z over the last 20 years and seeing the emergence of the creative industry, seeing it being taken more seriously outside of traditional old media networks is really exciting. Which as a result is going to take a minute for there to be the amount of experts necessary to guide the next generation. But actually, today, if you look at the depth of guests and the depth of contributors, it's definitely present. My question is how receptive the next generation are going to be to absorbing those lessons. Because if they absorb experience and they listen to the wisdom of elders, as it were, then it will be a really healthy place to be.
And also in terms of the type of creators that are present here, what do you think of them? Do you think they are able to be internationally viable, coming from a more experienced market? And what are the positive notes from them?
I actually think the pursuit of the international market would be the incorrect thing to do when you're creating a local community. I think there's a pursuit of numbers, and actually it's more about engagement in an active community. So you're better having 5 or 10,000 followers and having 60 or 70% of those engage than you are having 100,000 followers with less than 1%. So I understand the status and the potential financial, like it being financially lucrative pursuing an international market. But for me, what I would love to see is the content creators serving home first, serving Zambia, because there's subtleties and nuances of Zambian culture and a real willing community. It's whether then the Zambian community are willing to support and back those content creators, which will see whether or not we're seeing the best talent almost heading elsewhere to be successful, or whether the best talent feels like, no, I can stay here because there's a community that's viable and lucrative for me. So it's two-way. It's I'm going to create content for Zambians, and then my observation as a Londoner would be, as long as the Zambian community are wanting to see those people win. That's the big challenge that I've noticed.
And then in closing, what word would you like to say to some of the participants in this budding industry, from the content creators as well as to the providers of expertise to support these content creators?
Yeah.
So what word of advice would you have for them?
There's an abundance. But I think having an awareness that the short-term wins are small, whereas the long-term wins should be the pursuit. So rather than taking a quick bag now from one brand, instead it's a matter of, can you create consistently enough to enhance the long-term relationship that you have? So I think my headline would be, yes, an immediate payday is appealing, but actually are you damaging yourself in the long run because you've compromised your own brand values for a short-term gain? And that's, I think, my primary observation and hope for what we're able to land this weekend is, look, I understand, and when you need to eat, when you need to pay bills, when you need to pay rent, of course we all are attracted to a short-term payday, but creativity and content creation in general is a long-term game. Like, nothing happens overnight. Like, if you look at the creators who are coming in today, some of them have been creating for years and years and years before they saw success. And it's because you have to love it. You have to be passion driven in this game. If you're seeing it as a quick pursuit of money, it will be short-lived because people will see through your inauthenticity. Whereas actually, if you're prepared to say, I'm going to create for passion and purpose, and I'm going to see it through, I'm going to create on the good days, but also in the challenging days as well, that will be the difference between those who succeed and those who don't.
Okay. Thank you so much for being
You're
part
welcome.
of this show.
Thank you for your welcome as well. I appreciate it.
And also, able to tell us a few words in Bemba. You mentioned that you're a proud Bemba.
No, in the land I Chibemba Panono, not enough.
Not enough.
But Nato Telasana, Zakomo, I appreciate you.
All right, thank you so much. This has been Sari Chuma for Financial Insight Zambia. Get to know.